It is coming to the end of 2022, and it's been an incredibly busy year for pretty much all photographic and video projects.
Yeah,
there's been a lot going
cameras, lenses, accessories, drones. There has been so much out this year. Now,
really
we've already covered cameras in our previous video, so make sure we'll put the link in the description. We'll also place the card in the top right-hand corner to that, as well as we are today talking about lenses. And there was a hell of a lot of lenses that have been released this year.
A lot of lenses, but we're going to start off talking about a bit of an honourable mention. We, at the start of the year, got our hands on, finally, a sample of the Canon RF 100mm 2.8 macro. Now, this is something that came out in 2021. It was really hard to get a sample. Obviously, with COVID and everything back then, it was taking a long time to get things to market. So 2022, right at the start, we were getting a bit of a catch-up. And it was such a beautiful lens to review.
To be honest, the old EF version was remarkable in its sharpness, in its ability to kind of photograph really close distance. That's what gives it that macro ability. It had a 1:1 ratio. But the new RF version has got a few added upgrades that the older EF didn't. So you had that SA control ring, which controlled how the bokeh kind of looked in the foreground and background.
Just change things
it.
about,
It's kind of interesting, not for everyone's taste, but again, it's interesting to have.
Well, better to have it than not have it, right?
Definitely. And then secondly, it had a stronger macro ability.
It did,
So it had a 1 to 1.4 macro versus just 1 to 1. So things are going to look about 40% larger in your frame than if it would been just the standard EF version. So you can get a little bit closer, which gives you a great ability to macro. You'll see some older versions they'll have a not as strong macro rate. So this is a really good, if you're after a macro lens for an RF mount, this one is probably your best bet at this moment.
And also, because it's that RF mount, obviously it gives Canon a lot more to work with in terms of design. So the actual glass itself, optically it is better, but far better than the EF version. And they have a lot more to work with that larger mount. And beautiful, beautiful lenses.
And that's what's great about when you update the mount. We're seeing it across the board when it comes to Nikon Z-series lenses, as well as Sony E mount lenses. They're being upgraded and updated, and they are coming out being really good just because the mount has simply changed. So the autofocus is better. You've got the image stabilization. They're able to add it into some lenses that traditionally didn't have it. And with the the autofocus and the image stabilization of the RF 100mm really is far superior over the EF version, which is really nice.
They can physically do more with the glass. They can physically change the setup inside. And we saw a massive difference there. So we wanted to mention it, right, because it's such a lovely lens. Really massive fans of that 100mm, but it wasn't the only lens that we saw at the start of the year from Canon. The next things we got our hands on were pretty expensive. I actually went and hid when I did that review.
Yes, they were the biggest lenses I have ever seen, especially that really old 1200mm that you saw from I think it was the Winter Olympics a few years ago.
So we got our hands on the RF 800mm, so the new 800mm, and the RF 1200mm, as well as a comparison, one of the original 1200mm. Now, off the top of my head, I feel it was one from the early 90s, I want to say 91, 92, somewhere around there. But one of 20 of that version. They didn't make many of it, which is
it was the Mark II version, wasn't it? So it was the kind of the rare version.
It was super rare, There's very little changes between those old versions, which, I'm sure if you want to watch that video, I go into it in great depth. But those lenses were obviously incredible, really interesting to use.
I don't know another brand apart from Nikon that can create a lens of 1200mm or even 800mm at f5.6 or at f8. They are, if you are a bird photographer, if you're interested in wildlife or something like that, and you have however much, £20,000 or something like that to spend, then realistically you can't go wrong with those lenses. They had so many kind of uses for them when it comes to...
we know that those lenses aren't going to be sold to normal photographers, right? We know that, we review them, but realistically they're not going to the general public. They'll be used by Ministry of Defence, probably police, private surveillance, that sort of thing. So realistically, they're not going to members of the general public, but there will be the odd person who decide they want one. The 800mm especially, the 1200mm is a bit more unusable, but the 800mm especially. But it's not really about those lenses, it's about the trickle down of what those lenses mean for the rest of the brand. But interesting to play with all the same. That was a very interesting day.
When those first come out, I was unbelievably surprised of how small they were. And that's again another big benefit of that new RF mount is they're able to pack so much like tech in these lenses, but they're so small. So I'm not sure if we rent them on our website, but that's something that if you can get your hold on them for even a weekend, they are.
Yeah, I'm sure Canon
really,
do events and things.
Yeah, they're really interesting to use. So highly recommend if you ever get a chance, definitely try and.
Well, I can hand hold.
Yeah.
The 800 and 1200, not the original 1200mm. I wouldn't have done anyway, right? Because my arms are too weak to hold that much money. But yeah, the new 1200mm I could shoot handheld, which is just not for very long. But yeah, they were mad to use.
Remarkable. Now the next lens came out in early February, and you went to go and play pool, didn't you, with it?
I did. I was actually working. It wasn't just an afternoon of playing pool.
Well, she says that.
It was a little bit. But yeah, we got the new 16-35 f4 Powerzoom lens from Sony, and I wasn't.
Now I was surprised for two reasons. Firstly, they made a Powerzoom lens in 2022, but secondly, how good it was.
Yeah, I wasn't like crazy excited when I first saw it. I just thought, okay, this is fine.
Yeah,
it's a lens that fills a gap. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, once we got playing with it, I was like, I really like this.
This is
nice
remarkable.
to use.
Yeah.
And from a video point of view, George was with us on that shoot, and I sort of said to him, okay, you take it for a bit. I'll mess about pretending to play pool not very well, and you can shoot, and he loved how it worked. It allowed you to get some shots that you wouldn't have been able to get, and because Sony's autofocus is so good, you genuinely could use the Powerzoom and it would hold focus. It was really fun. It's I would say if you have a nice Sony setup for video especially
if you're using any of the cinema line cameras, like for instance the FX3, they've actually got the TW switch on the actual so you can zoom in and out via that. So you can do quite interesting like dolly effects and stuff like that you wouldn't have been able to do unless you were very talented at being able to zoom in and out. So and you can almost customize the buttons on the back to allow you to zoom in and zoom out at certain speeds.
So customizable.
It had a soft finish, so it would slow down as it gets to one. Very, very clever. Not just a traditional one where it just zooms in really quickly. You could be really clever with it, and that's what makes it cinematic.
And it has a switch on the side that does it at different zoom than when you're doing it on the camera.
Very clever.
Yeah, it was really nice to use. So I would say if you've got a kit that's missing something on that wide end, or if you're looking to upgrade your wide end, especially if you are using something like FX3, maybe you got your hands on one of the new FX30s.
I think it would be really good with the FX30.
Yeah, with the FX30. Or if you shoot stills and the odd bit of video as well, because it's still great for stills. There's no downside to using it for stills.
Well, you used it, funny enough, for our Sony A7 V video.
I did, the A7R5 video. I did use it for that, and really, really nice lens. It was one that surprised me a little bit about how much I liked it, because when you use a lot of lenses like we do, ones that are maybe sort of your standard lenses that you have in a kit obviously make less of an impression because we use so many of them. But that was a really fun one to use.
It was interesting, I must say I was very surprised, and that's definitely something, if I was a Sony user, I'd definitely add that to my kit if I was interested in maybe a wide angle zoom lens that gives you that ability, especially with any of the FX series cameras. Yeah.
And Sony also released another really exciting lens, which was a G Master. It was the FE 24-70 f2.8 G Master Mark II. Mark II. Now, again, the G Masters are so good that when a new G Master comes out, it's like, great,
what's it going to offer?
What's it going to offer?
Where do you go from there?
But this was so lightweight, and that made a massive difference. The original G Master is brilliant, but it is a hunk of piece of kit. And it's heavy, and it's not the best for using with gimbals because of that. No. But the 24-70, the new one, it was great. It was nice and lightweight. It felt hardy. It was easy to use. The image quality was just stunning. That was one of my favourite shoots, I would say, of the year.
Oh, really? Is that the one with the smoke? That's the smoke bomb one?
Yeah, so we went to an old shed, basically. We had a load of sort of smoke delivery systems, the little grenade things, and we just played for the day. We had a model in a really sort of old-fashioned suit, and we let the sun come in through the holes in the shed, and it was lovely to use. We were using the Rotolight on that shoot. Actually, we've got it behind us now. It's just creating that little bit of pink you see in the background, and having a light to work with that sort of lens. It really, if you don't have a good lens on a shoot like that, it ruins it.
It can do, definitely, especially a dark lens, and that's what's great about an f2.8. Is it gives you that ability of shooting in fairly dark conditions while still offering good image quality at higher ISOs.
Absolutely, and being able to take some of those images and make use of high resolution. I was either using A1 or an A7R4 on that shoot. So either way, it was minimum sort of 50 megapixels ish, and yeah, there was no lack of resolution there. No. You know, the lens really made use of what the sensor could do.
And I think the biggest upgrade for me, anyway, using that lens, is it's got that aperture ring.
Yes.
Now, it's a small little detail, but a lot of the new Sonys and Sigma lenses have got that aperture ring, and it is so nice to use. It's very similar to what Fuji have been doing for years, so I must say probably a little bit of a copy, but I absolutely love that. And being able to just quickly change from 2.8 to f4 and be able to visually see it without looking into the menu system, because again, it's Sony's menu systems aren't always necessarily the best for viewing information straight away. So actually having be able to look at it straight, I absolutely love that. And I think they are going to be bringing it to future lenses.
Yeah, a lot of the lenses.
Especially like, for instance, if they bring out the 16 to 35 and things like that, when they eventually update them, if all of them could have that, I'm happy.
And they've got the click on and off, right, as well?
Yes.
Some lenses,
so it can be smooth, so you can use it for video as well.
Yeah, but some lenses, when they're only smooth and you're a photographer, it's really annoying because you're like, oh God, I've changed it again, I forgot. And whereas with the click on, it does make a difference.
It's a strong click as well. It's a visual click.
Yeah, you really feel it. So no, the 2470G Master, it was a genuine upgrade to a Mark II rather than it being sort of new people will buy it, people who already own the original won't. With this one, people who own the original genuinely
would highly upgrade. Big upgrade.
If I had the money, I'd
trade in your
that.
old one, get this new one, and you're going to notice the difference. Some lenses you won't, but this particular generation was a big upgrade.
It was.
So later on in the year, Tamron released or gave us 2 lenses for both Leica and also Sony E mount. They released the new 28 to 75 f2.8 as well as a brand new 35mm to 150. Now this particular lens, to be honest, most lenses, the longer the range, usually the worse image quality. It's usually, if it can do absolutely everything, it can't. So usually, sometimes I've used an 18 to 300mm before and it was soft everywhere and it had quite bad distortion and vignetting. But this 35 to 150 is pretty much the only lens I would use that had that length of zoom. That had a really good aperture as well. So f2 from one end to 2.8, 150. So it is if you wanted just one lens to go on holiday, this is the lens I would use if you're in either the Sony or, for instance, L-mount.
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 But it's their S-series, so, S1, S1R, S1H,
the L-mount Alliance series, there we go.
Yes, the L-mount Alliance. But, I took these both to Scotland. I went on a little road trip, went up to Scotland and went into sort of the Cairngorm Mountains and went round to like Braemar, and so right in the centre.
And that's the type of lens you want to use it for, because you don't want to bring all of them. You just need to remember to remember them, really.
Yes, all right. Yes. I might have left one on a bridge.
So always make sure, remember your kit, guys. It's very important. You buy a nice lens, you want to keep it.
Yeah. Or if you forget it, do it in the outskirts of Scotland so no one drives past for 4 hours. But the lenses themselves performed so well in that environment. It was freezing cold.
Both of them are weather sealed and both of them are designed, again, for that kind of travel orientated use.
And it was a good job.
They're small, they're light, they're weather sealed, but they're also built really well. So they're designed, if you want, again, just want one lens to go with you on holiday, that 35 to 50 or that 28 to 75 is a great focal length. So at the same time, Fuji released the X-H2S. They also released one of their most powerful zoom lenses, really.
Huge.
Massive range, very similar to other lenses that currently exist, but for the Fuji mount, which is brand new, they released the XF 150 to 600mm. Now, this is a great lens, especially for Fuji, because there's been a lacking of lenses at that range.
Yeah, there has.
They had the 100 to 400, then you could use the 1.4 times extender, but this one here is the first lens to ever reach 600mm in the Fuji range. So really, it's opened up the range for bird photography for Fuji, which I personally think is a great combination, especially when you use it with the Fujifilm X-H2S.
Yeah, and it was really pretty. Really pretty to use. We took it into the forest on a day where it was a bit, one of those days where you sort of have sun and cloud and the light's a bit odd and there were bluebells and things, and it was just beautiful to use and completely hand-holdable.
Oh, 100%. That's what I was mostly surprised about, was the lightweight design. I've used the Sigma 150 to 600mm and I've also used the Sony 200 to 600mm. Yes, they are both full-frame lenses, but they are so much heavier. They're really heavy. This lens, really light, and it's also internally zoomed as well, which I was really surprised with. Most of these massive lenses, all, they zoom in and out quite far. They have an externally zoomed system, where this one, everything was built in.
All
so
internal.
the size of the lens, it's not going to get any longer or any shorter when you go ahead and zoom in and zoom out. So they're the two things that really surprised me with that particular lens. It was very, very good.
And you're right, it fills a gap that there was in the Fuji range, because I love Fuji, and I've shot Fuji for a really, really long time, but as someone who really enjoys shooting wildlife quite often, that is a hole, and they filled that now. Now you've got that extra reach. And I know there was the converters, but it
ended up slowing down the autofocus, and it also limited where you could focus in the frame as well. And also the light. Because
if you're shooting, well, especially in the UK, like you get a couple of months of good light, but that's pretty much it. And you have to work in lower light situations, and being able to have that little bit of extra because of your aperture is fantastic. And
if you really want to be far, it actually works with both teleconverters. So you can go ahead and slap on a 1.4 times teleconverter with this 150-600mm, getting almost a 900mm range, which is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. But make sure, if you ever get a chance, if you're ever in one of our stores, our many stores, you can see them all online, try and get your hands on one, because it's one of those lenses that I think people will be like, oh, it's too long. Because it's too much zoom range, so it can't be that great. But actually, it was really pretty,
and you'll be surprised of how lightweight it is, honestly.
Next, Sony bought us 3 lenses at the same time, and they were all pretty small. We got the Sony E 11mm, the 15mm, and the 10-20 zoom.
Now, something to bear in mind is, yes, they might be E-mount, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're designed for their full frame cameras. That's what's great about E-mount, it's full frame and APS-C. The way to determine is FE is full E-mount, and then E is just for their APS-C. So if you've got any of the A6000 cameras, as well as, for instance, the Sony FX30 that got released earlier this year as well, I think a lot of these particular lenses are going to kind of fit really well with that kind of ecosystem of cameras that hopefully Sony will be bringing out in the future, as well as the current ones they've got at the moment.
The great thing is, with E-mount, unlike the original sort of EF and EFS from years ago, is they still fit.
They still work.
On your full frame, your camera will generally just automatically go to APS-C
Unless you
mode.
turn that particular setting off, it will technically crop in by 1.5 times to create that APS-C. So they are still usable, which is nice.
Now, out of the 3 lenses, my favourite was the 15. It had an aperture ring. It was
1.4 as well.
1.4. It was really nice to use. Really loved that lens. But all of them had their merits. 11mm is nice and wide. It is APS-C.
It's one of the widest I think you can actually get for the APS-C range. So if you're after an ultra wide angle, either for photo or more specifically for video, I think that's going to be really, really helpful.
And then if you wanted something that encompassed all of that, was really travel friendly, really portable, then you had that 10-20. And that was a really portable lens. And I can imagine, for me, because I like doing a lot of wildlife and I like lots of other stuff, if I'm ever going out to do that, if I'm ever going out to a wildlife sanctuary, I'll have my big 100-400 or whatever else. And sometimes you don't want to then carry your 24-70 as well. So it's a really nice lens to like chuck in your bag to make sure you have something wide with you.
And now the world has opened up after COVID, we can actually travel, and these lenses have been almost perfectly designed for that function. I think it's really, really nice.
Around the middle of the year, I got pretty ill and I completely lost my voice, which was very, very bad timing because you were on holiday and we had 2 lenses to review. 2 new Canon lenses. We had the RF 15-30 f 4.5 to 6.3 and we had the 24mm f 1.8.
1.8 IS.
It is, because it's part of that nice range that Canon have. They have
part of their
16,
STM.
24, 35, 50 and an 85, right? So really nice setup of lenses. So I did the whole shoot without talking, and then I had to VO it afterwards. And I was actually really pleased with how it came out, mainly because there was less of me talking. But the 24mm especially, the 15-30 gave me a lot of range, a lot of versatility to shoot with, which was great. It was really nice where we were shooting, so we had lots of caves and forests and different types of views. So trying to shoot there, normally I'd take a few lenses because you have to lots of different things to look at and types of shots to get. So the 15-30 gave you quite a nice range to work with.
It did.
But the 24mm was
That's
really
the one
nice.
that I was really excited about.
Yeah, it was good.
For quite a few reasons. But firstly, it's got IS, so that wide angle is really impressive. It's got up to 8 stops as well with certain compatible RF cameras, like for instance the R6, R5 and things like that. So that particular lens is something that will definitely fit into a lot of camera bags, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love primes and
small.
IS primes, image stabilized primes. they're definitely my favourite. I think they're really good. And the size and weight is actually the lens I ended up using for the Canon R6 Mark II video.
Yes.
I actually really liked that kind of, that compatibility. Those two lenses worked really, that camera and lens worked really well together. So if you're thinking of you want a wide angle prime for video, or maybe for hybrid even, then this is going to be, I think, the lens for you. I really do.
Yeah, no, it was good in sort of a multitude of situations.
Yeah.
Like the reason I went to the location I did with that lens was because we had those sort of pitch black caves with no light at all, and we were using sort of like nan lights and bits and bobs that I've got at home, and you know, I had some atmosphere spray and things like that. And then also you had the bright sunshine outside, and it was an interesting sort of use for the 24mm to see how it performed across all those different things, and having that image stabilisation up to 8 stops, because I was shooting with the R5 in the caves. You know, it meant I could sort of spray some atmosphere spray and get some nice light on and give myself a bit of time and handhold. We know how good the image stabilisation is in our system, so it meant I could handhold for a couple of seconds if I wanted to. I could shoot as long as the model could stand still, which was great. So yeah, if you are looking to get a set of primes for Canon series, that is a really lovely set, going for like 16, 24, 35, 50, 85, and you can design which one might be best for you. But you know, for video as well, as James is saying, you know, gimbal usage, if you've got the 24 and you've got the 35 and the 50, there is going to be almost no gimbal adjustment between those. Very minor. So minor.
No.
If you go either end, 16 to 85, you'll see a little bit more. Bit more adjustment.
But that 16 and 50mm are actually the same. They're pretty much identical. It's just the optical formula that's changed. So they don't have to redesign all the lenses, which means it's actually more user-friendly in my. And they're also, because of that, there's not much research and development that goes into them, which means they're probably cheaper as well.
Yes. It was nice to see that great little set of primes rounded out.
100%.
It was the year of wide-angle lenses.
It really was.
So many.
Every single brand seemed to release a wide-angle lens. Canon, Sony,
if not
Lumix.
more than one at the same time. And coming towards sort of, what was it, September time? We saw.
I think it was late August.
Late August. We saw the Lumix 9mm. Now this was an f1.7 lens. It was for the Micro Four Thirds.
Micro Four Thirds mount. So don't forget it. You're looking at around about what?
18.
18mm f. 2.8 kind of equivalency. Really nice focal length for that particular camera, kind of Micro Four Thirds camera. Really good when it comes to, I personally thought, what we were using it for, which was kind of like almost urban type, street type of photography.
Yeah, we went down to South Bank. We sort of just went for a walk, really, didn't we? Yeah. Just sort of explored, went on the
Uber boats for the very first time, actually.
We did, yeah, that was actually really fun. I really like those boats. We've used them a couple of times now for reviews. We have used them now, yes. They're great for getting around London, especially if you've got a big bag with kit in, because it's a bit annoying on the tube sometimes.
It can be.
Yeah, highly recommend if you're going around London, you want to do a photo trip.
Yeah.
The boats are a good way to do it. But yeah, that 9mm, as you say, equivalent 18mm, around f2.8. So yeah, it was a lovely lens to use in that environment. Also, when it is really busy, which it was when we went, wasn't it? I think it was end of school holidays.
Well, we ended up walking around near Westminster, and it was just, it's always busy. That is a very, very kind of iconic place in London, so it's notoriously busy for that situation.
But quite often that makes composing, and you either want to be on a long lens, long prime, where you can just pick out individual little things, or you need to be wide, because that individual sort of, you know, if you were working with, say, a 50 or 35,
might be a bit restricting.
Yeah, you can't,
for
people
that
won't
area,
get out of your way.
No.
Yeah, so having that sort of 18mm equivalent, that 9mm on Micro Four Thirds, really gave us a lot to work with.
Yes.
And it was fun to just have one lens, actually, to shoot with the entire day.
It forces you to really think about your composition when you can't just go, oh, I'll just swap lenses to this, which is what I notoriously do. I've got so many lenses for different kind of types of photography, but when you've just got to use one, it really makes you think, oh, I have to step back a little bit, or I can actually use this in the foreground. We ended up bumping someone that looked like they were getting married on Westminster Bridge, which I thought was quite funny. So I must say that particular lens was very, very surprising. I really liked it for the Micro Four Thirds. We ended up using the G9, so it was a really nice kind of fit between them.
Classic G9.
Yeah.
Love that camera.
Now, this lens did come out a very long time ago. I must say it came out almost the end of 2021, I think it was.
So another honourable mention. We're being a bit naughty here.
But this was the Canon RF 16mm f2.8. Now, this lens is remarkable. In fact, I loved it so much I ended up buying it after the review. It was really good. Now, this is very similar in its build design to the 50mm f1.8. So if you're, let's say, got a gimbal and you're wanting, a 50mm, then you jump to the 16mm, there will be no change in the actual weight or ergonomic design of it. Now, it is not the sharpest lens, I must say, I've ever used, and it's got a heavy amount of distortion and vignetting to it, but overall, it's a really good lens for its price point, I think. It is, that and the 50mm are both great RF lenses.
It's priced accordingly, isn't it?
It is. And if you're jumping into the ecosystem, then that is two lenses I would go for. As well as I think this particular 16mm kind of forgoed the APS-C RF camera that came out, the R7. I think it was actually designed for it.
Yeah.
So a 16mm and APS-C Canon is a 24mm. I think that particular lens actually almost was the forego to the RF cameras that we're seeing now with APS-C, the R7 and the R10. So if you're thinking of, you've got an R7 or an R10 and you're wanting a fairly wide angle lens and you don't want to spend too much money, that 16mm is going to be absolutely perfect.
Well, before this lineup of lenses that Canon put out, the RF series was crying out for, I hate to say it, but a nifty 50. And now, okay, some of the series are a little bit more expensive, but that 16mm is incredibly reasonable.
Only wide-angle lens that's not £1,700.
Yeah.
And that's just a crazy amount of money. So having a lens that's far cheaper, like a tenth of the price, is perfect for a lot of smaller, lighter camera bags.
Yeah.
And I use, whenever I go on holiday, I have a 16mm and a 50mm, simply because they're small and lightweight. Yeah. And I've got an R5, so they're absolutely perfect for that. And another wide-angle lens, again by Lumix, but this is their S-series.
Yes, this is their full frame.
Full frame, so it's designed to work with, and I ended up using it with the S1H, but it's designed to work with the S1, S5, things like that, any of the full frame kind of Leica series or Leica mounts.
Yes.
So that L-mount alliance. Now, this is the 18mm f1.8. Now, this lens has been specifically designed, I would say, more for video. And the main reason is it's definitely more video orientated, but I think the reason for it is because they are basically designed identical.
Yeah.
So you've got the 18, 24, 35, 50 and 85. All of them are pretty much the same size, the same weight, the same build, and also the same weight distribution, which is, again, really good when you're placing them on for a gimbal, for example. Now, it was a really good lens. It was very wide angle. I wish I could use it in a little bit more of an interesting situation. I ended up just simply going to one of my local villages, St. Neots. But I must say, if I was on a set, let's say I was on a wedding or if I was on a film set and I needed a range of prime lenses, I'd go for that 18, I'd go for the 24, 35, 50 and 85. They've got the same look, the same aperture, and I love that. And that's, I think, really important. If you're going into a film set, you're working with a lot of people, maybe you're doing like a documentary, for example, having a range of lenses with a consistent look. Like, I love Canon, but the problem is every single lens has a different characteristic to it. The 24 looks a bit different to the 35. So having a range of lenses that will have a similar look is, I think, really important for consistency purposes.
For that type of shooting.
100%.
And it's interesting that we see another manufacturer fill out their 5 lightweight, similar primes.
Yeah.
We're seeing this from almost all of them now. I mean, Sony's isn't quite as consistent, but we still saw them bring out that 1020 and the 50mm, and it's interesting to see that. It's obviously very popular between all of the brands, right? Because we see it time and time again, and now this year, all of them have put some time into filling out that range of lenses, and they always seem to be pretty good. There might be the odd one that has a bit of distortion here, or the odd one that, but they're all from all of the brands. They're quite impressive series that they've got out now.
Yeah, they really are. And I must say, and it makes you think that, as long as you've got it doesn't matter what camera you've got, as long as the lenses are good and you've got a variety of lenses that you can trust, it doesn't really matter what camera you end up using. So if you've got the S1H, you've got the S1R, you've got the S1, the S5, for example, then these particular lenses are going to really take you into the future, and you can grow with it, I think. And they're going to bring in hopefully more and more out with that same look and consistency, which is really important for someone like myself that's looking for that when they start doing more documentaries and things. That's going to be really important.
So, whole of 2022, we can be naughty and include the honourable mentions if you want. what was your favourite lens?
Probably, out of all of them to use, that Fuji 150-600 really stood out for me.
Still mine.
Mostly because I was using that XH2. Again, that's probably my favourite photo camera of the year, I think, for myself. If you watched the previous video, more about that. But I loved that you know, they just worked. The compatibility was perfect, and I noticed a lot of people were after it, and it was one of those lenses that people are always like, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? Yeah. So it was a constant question. Oh, I'm waiting for that lens. And I'm thinking, oh, it's not even out yet. Like, and then it eventually came out. Everyone jumped on it. And I think, this is definitely the Fuji lens for me, 100%. And it just opens up that, a lot of people were like, oh, Fuji's for street. But 150-600mm, that means it's also for wildlife.
That's such an old view, isn't it?
It is.
Fuji can cover everything now.
It can do now with that lens. So what about you?
For me, I think, it's really difficult. I love the 100mm, but I'm not going to say that because that one was technically 2021. But I think that 2470 G Master. Yeah. And the reason is not just because of the image quality, but because I would say that was one of my favourite shoots of the whole year. I loved that shoot. I'm going to say
the photos you got from it are really good. And that's why I love smoke grenades, because they just add another dimension to your photo. But also, traditional boring photo just adds another level to it.
It does, but it wasn't just that. It was, if you watch the video, I'll put the link in the description. And if you don't want to watch the whole thing, which you should because it's good, but if you don't, then nearer the end there's a portion where we just focus on video, and George shot video with the 24-7, and oh my! I think that was one of my favourite short sort of video demonstrations we've done in ages. It was just stunning. The look was beautiful. Like, I just loved it.
And that's what's great about those lenses, that they are true hybrid lenses. You're buying a true hybrid camera, A7 IV, maybe buying the A7S III or even the FX series. You know, that's going to fit with anything, and that's what's really, really important.
If I had unlimited funds, right, I'd find it very hard to pick. 'Cause in this job, it's almost impossible to pick what you want. I love the R5, always have RF set up, but I'd find it very difficult now if I had unlimited funds to not buy the A7R5 with that 2470 G Master. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And all right, what I'm saying there isn't very scientific. I'm not talking about, you know, specifics with the lens, but part of buying this type of equipment is what you output from it. And when I got home from using that 2470, quite often, I think with kit, I don't know about you, but quite often you have a sense of enjoyment when you're using it. And then you get home and you're like, these are fine. These are great.
Yeah, your reflection on it afterwards.
And then you don't really think about it again. With that, when I got home, I was just as excited and just as pleased. And then the video came through and I saw the demo footage and I was like, okay, I'm even more pleased. Yeah. And it's nice to be that excited about using the kit all the way through.
And I think for me, it's when some brands will create, they'll update a lens and they'll update one thing and they'll charge 20% more. But this was a genuine upgrade. It was completely redesigned from the very top to the bottom. It was smaller, it was lighter, it had that aperture ring. It was a genuine upgrade. With it actually makes it worth it.
It is hard to, you know, we are a retail store and it is unusual that I would expect people to dive from a Mark 1 of a high-end lens to a Mark 2 when they've come out not a huge amount of time from each other. Because
there's about 8 years in between them, which for lenses, that was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So when I saw the 70-200 last year, the 70-200 G Master got updated and we saw the Mark II. And that was beautiful. That was really impressive. And again, there was that size difference. And I thought, okay, hopefully we'll see something similar from the 2470. But I wasn't sure what they could do because it's the same size mount, still a mount. And, you know, we've seen something different from Z and RF because of the mount difference. And I thought, what can we see that will be different? But it was very different. There was a huge amount of improvement. For me, that's got to be my lens. I mean, we do have a little list here. I mean, looking over it, there's quite a few that I liked. But
this year was very popular with good prime and zoom lenses out there. And
also a lot of affordable lenses came out, which was really nice to see because
they're filling in the gaps.
They are.
You know, it's great. All pros can use the L series or the top end, like G Master lenses, but not everyone can able to afford them, especially if it's just a hobby for you. So having cheaper, more budget orientated, still great lenses That's what's more important for me, because they're the lenses that I can afford. I can't afford all the L-series lenses. I can drop £3,000 on a 28-70, but I'd much rather buy like an 18, a 24, and a 35, because that's what I'd like, and that's what I like about what's this year. It's been the year of the kind of hobby cameras and the hobby lenses, and I love that. So make sure to write it down in the comments below. What was your favourite lens? I'd love to know. Did you buy one, or are you thinking of buying one? Make sure to write it down in the comments.
And if you want to find out more about any of the stuff we've spoken about today, then we've, in the description, put links to all the videos. There's a ton in there, so make sure to go and have a look. And of course, you can ask us any questions, and there's loads of information on the website as well.
Yeah, and if you're interested in any of the camera releases, we've already made the video. Again, we'll make sure to put that. It'll be the very first link in the description.
But for now, a massive thank you for watching. Hope you join us again soon in 2023 for some more videos from Wex Photo Video.
See you guys.